Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show today. The topic is the Martin Luther King Celebration 2001. And of course, we're talking to Dr. LBaldwin, professor at Vanderbilt University, dealing with Dr. King. And of course, Dr. Baldwin, let's use the 1963 speech made in Washington to sort of deal with some information relative to Dr. King for the rest of the program. First of all, to have you to look at where we are now in 2000, ready to move into 2001. Where are we now in reference to the realization of that dream, and then to later give us some information about the dream in the future?
I think there's no question that we've made quite a few advancements since 1963. We no longer have the humiliating white and colored signs on public facilities. We blacks have many blacks have moved into the middle class. We have a level of integration in the nation's schools. African Americans have moved into major universities and colleges and have assumed teaching and administrative positions. So we've witnessed some changes. We now have the right to vote, to hold public office. Many African Americans have been elected to political offices. All of that represents change, but I think Dr. King's Holy Crusade, I like to call it a Holy Crusade, has not materialized totally in its fullness, because we have not yet achieved economic justice. We have many homeless people in the country. The gap between the haves and the have-nots, as Dr. King called them, has widened and has grown. And that's where we need to focus, I think, on economic issues, economic empowerment, not just for the African American community, but for poor people in general, poor people of different ethnic and racial backgrounds.
You know, Dr. Baldwin, I think that quite recently we talked about a booming economy within the United States, and we talked about employment and some of the things that you're talking about that could possibly bring about economic justice. But now, I don't want to be pessimistic about it, but there are some points of views that things could drastically change. And of course, instead of having a low unemployment rate, that just a couple of digits upward would have a tremendous impact upon poor people, and especially African American poor people. Let's look at it from that perspective. What are some of the, what's going on now?
Well, there's already a lot of talk about the possibility of a recession, and that could mean could have devastating effects for the economy. We also have a new administration going in now, as you well know. President Bush and his administration. And I tend to think that the Bush presidency and administration will stand as perhaps the greatest challenge to Dr. King's dream, or to the realization of that dream, since Ronald Reagan. Because Bush, I think, is opposed to much of what Dr. King stood for. Bush is anti-affirmative action. He feels that the best route to world peace is through a strong military, and Dr. King felt that diplomatic means should be given more priority than military means. Bush is a strong supporter of the NRA, the National Rifle Association. So at many levels, I think his philosophy is inconsistent with Dr. King's dream.
And now what should those who are concerned about Dr. King and the continuation of the King legacy, as we make preparations to celebrate Dr. King's the Dr. King holiday, what should be our major theme? What should be the things that we try to get across to the population during this period?
I think it should be the theme should be the continuing struggle for the beloved community. Dr. King, as I said earlier, talked a lot about the beloved community. Not just on a local, regional, national levels, but also on an international level. I think we need to come to a greater sense of our world citizenship in this country, and to realize that the problems we face cannot be separated from the problems that oppressed people face throughout the world. So I think the best way to celebrate his dream, the best way to promote Dr. King's dream, is to have that sense of world citizenship. It means, of course, also churches and cultural centers, local community centers, and other institutions getting together, pooling their resources, trying to do something about the problems of poverty and homelessness and crime, because I don't think we'll be able to depend a lot on the national leadership to address these issues. President Bush has already said that he will give a lot of leeway and power to states to address these kinds of issues, and I personally don't think that will work. I think churches, local community centers, cultural centers, other local institutions should get involved and see this as an opportunity to get more involved in efforts to transform society for the better.
You know, Dr. Baldwin, I think one of the things that people talked about during the civil rights movement, excuse me, was the right to vote. What has happened in terms of the ability to be able to cast the franchise since the civil rights movement? I think that in some forums you hear people talk about African Americans especially being disfranchised through various other means now, and that in reality, and I think that even in Florida, according to the press and et cetera, it means that there's been a disfranchisement somewhere in terms of the African American vote. Now, the truth of all of that, we're not here to demonstrate, but what does that mean?
Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. We have the right to vote, but many African Americans have complained about being harassed at the polls, being turned away, and that happens, I think, probably in many areas throughout the country. So we have the right, but there are still forces that try to tamper with that. So what I think we need to do is to take it more seriously. Churches, other institutions should get involved in teaching people how to make wise use of the ballot and that kind of thing, because this is one of the most precious rights that we have. Unfortunately, a lot of African Americans and other persons today feel disenfranchised as a result of what happened in Florida. People, I think, a lot of people will lose faith in the political process, political processes, and we have to be mindful of that.
And so instead of some, I think we've heard some commentators say that people will now become more conscious of the vote because of this. Do you believe that to be?
I think it could have that effect. It could make people more conscious. It could discourage a lot of people as well. I think people have seen what happened with the Florida vote. And they have questions now about whether or not their votes count.
And of course, Dr. Baldwin, let me take this short commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this break.